I meet you here again on Guru Gedara with another lesson in our grade 11 syllabus. Today we are going to talk about the second part of our unit 15, which comes under competency 4. We have done the first part. In the first lesson we have done there we have talked about the organization levels of the biosphere, and then population growth curve and maintaining the equilibrium of ecosystems. In today's lesson we are going to talk about biogeochemical cycles, and later we are going to talk about environmental pollutants. So, this part also comes under competency 4. Yeah. So, under competency 4 you are supposed to explore nature, properties and processes of earth and space by understanding natural phenomena for intelligent and sustainable use. That is the purpose of this unit 15. Finally, we should help sustainable development, which you are going to learn in the last part of unit 15. Yeah. So, now let us recall what we have done in the second part of our first lesson, because that helps us start today's lesson. In there we talk about maintaining the equilibrium of an ecosystem. When maintaining equilibrium of an ecosystem, energy flow and cycling of materials play an important role. When it comes to cycling of materials, to explain that we are using biogeochemical cycles. Yeah. So, in the first part of today's lesson we are going to talk about biogeochemical cycles. Yeah, let us see what these biogeochemical cycles are. Yeah, the process of cyclic circulation of essential materials through the lithosphere, hydrosphere and the atmosphere is called a biogeochemical cycle. It is a cyclic circulation. Yeah. So, now this is how you need to understand. All organisms take what they want for their survival from the environment. In biogeochemical cycles, we pay attention on the elements that these organisms need for their survival. Where do these organisms get these elements from? Yeah, they get these elements from the environment. So, will they remain in the body of organisms for a long time? Yeah, till they die, most of these elements will remain in the body of organisms. So, once they die, they should be added back to the environment. So, these biogeochemical cycles explain how that happens. That is why we identify a biogeochemical cycle as a cyclic circulation of essential elements. Yeah, they help maintain the environmental balance, because we need to understand if you get the biosphere. Already you know what biosphere is, the part of the earth where life exists. If you get the biosphere, that is with limited food and fuel. So, then whatever the things that the organisms take to their body from the environment should go back to the environment. Then only the balance will be maintained. That is why it says these biogeochemical cycles help maintain the balance of the environment. Water, carbon, oxygen, nitrogen, phosphorus are subjected to cycling. So, whatever it is, not only these ones. So, here we have shown you few examples, but all elements used by organisms subject to this cycling. So, we are not going to talk about all. As examples, we are going to talk about cyclic circulation of two essential elements, carbon and nitrogen. So, we talk about the carbon cycle and nitrogen cycle. Yeah. First, we talk about the carbon cycle. Is carbon an essential element? Yeah, I know you all know, we all know that all organisms need carbon. Why do we need carbon? Just recall what we have done in the first unit in grade 10. There you have talked about biomolecules which make life. Obviously, biomolecules are related to life. What are the biomolecules? Carbohydrates, proteins, lipids, nucleic acids, these are the main biomolecules. So, all these contain carbon in them. So, this shows us that all organisms need carbon for their survival. So, now when we talk about biogeochemical cycles, we need to think how carbon exists in the environment and how that goes to the body of organisms and how it goes back to the environment from the body of organisms. That is what the cycle about. So, in that way if you think, you do not have to by heart each and everything. Even in the exam, if you are asked to write an answer to a particular question, you can easily figure it out. So, then you need to think how the element exists in the environment and how it goes to the body of organisms and how it goes back to the environment. So, then if you can understand that, you can understand carbon cycle and even the cycling of other materials. Okay. So, now let us see the things related to the carbon cycle. You can see the carbon cycle on the screen. Yeah. So, when you get carbon, we get carbon as carbon dioxide in the atmosphere. Yeah. So, plants use this carbon dioxide for photosynthesis. So, this is one main method in which carbon is fixed in the body of organisms. So, plants use this carbon dioxide and put it together with water to produce glucose. Yeah. So, in this way carbon enters the body of plants, and animals eat these plants, like herbivores will directly eat these plants or plant products. Then this carbon goes to the body of animals also. Yeah. Meanwhile, like carnivores and top carnivores, they will eat these animals. So, then this carbon goes to the body of those animals also. Yeah. Meanwhile, this plant and these animals, carnivores and all these animals and plants respire. So, this respiration adds this carbon dioxide back to the environment. I told you, whenever we talk about cycles, we need to think how the element exists in nature and how it goes to the body of organisms and how it goes back to the environment. Now, here you can see plants take in carbon dioxide from the atmosphere photosynthesis, and it goes to the body of animals, from these animals to other animals. So, then when they respire, carbon dioxide will be again added to the environment. Meanwhile, we know these plants, animals, other animals, all that die, and they release their waste matter also in between. So, they subject to decomposition. The waste materials and the dead bodies of animals subject to decomposition. So, this decomposition happens as a result of aerobic action or the action of aerobic microorganisms. So, that also adds carbon dioxide to the air. That is what you can see there. Yeah. Meanwhile, part of this dead plant and animal bodies subject to fossilization and form fossil fuels. Yeah, we take fossil fuels for different purposes. We burn fossil fuels for different purposes, for power generation, for transportation and for industrial activities. We burn fossil fuels. So, burning of fossil fuels or combustion of fossil fuels also add carbon dioxide to the air. So, now you see here we identify 3 methods in which carbon dioxide goes back to the environment from the body of organisms. What are the 3 methods? You can see respiration of plants and animals, decomposition and combustion. So, in environmental chemistry actually we identify them as sources, then they are the sources of carbon dioxide. Meanwhile, there is one method which takes carbon dioxide from the atmosphere to the body of organisms, that is photosynthesis. So, in environmental chemistry we call it a sink. So, photosynthesis is a sink of carbon dioxide. Yeah. So, this is how we need to explain the carbon cycle. Now, I told you we talk about nitrogen cycle also. Yeah. So, as usual we need to think how nitrogen exists in the air and then how it goes to the body of organisms. Yeah. Before going to talk about the cycle, let us think why we need nitrogen. Do we need nitrogen? Obviously, we need nitrogen. So, why do we need nitrogen? Just think of the biomolecules. Or what are the biomolecules which contain nitrogen in them? You know, proteins have nitrogen in them. Nitrogen is an essential element in proteins, and nucleic acids have nitrogen in them. So, nitrogen is something that all organisms need. But what do you think? Can plants absorb this nitrogen directly from the atmosphere? No, they can't. Can we absorb this nitrogen directly from the atmosphere? Now, you know, when we inhale, nitrogen goes inside, but can we take it in or can we absorb it? No, we can't. Even other animals can't do that. Then there should be a way in which this nitrogen in the atmosphere goes to the environment, let us say enter the plants and then enter the animals and then back to the environment. So, in that way it should happen. So, this is what we are going to learn. Yeah. So, now let us pay attention on what we see on the screen. Yeah. Nitrogen exists as N2 gas in the atmosphere. Yeah, you can see atmospheric nitrogen. Now we need to think how this nitrogen goes to the body of plants, animals and microorganisms. We already know neither plants nor animals can directly take in this atmospheric nitrogen, but there are some microorganisms, they can do this. Yeah, we identify one such microorganism, one such bacterium in root nodules of legumes. Yeah. So, there is a bacterium called Rhizobium which is found in the root nodules of legumes, and it can absorb this atmospheric nitrogen and convert that into a form that the plants can absorb. So, then nitrogen enters the plant. Not only Rhizobium, even there is another bacterium called Azotobacter which lives freely in soil, that can also do the same. So, in this way nitrogen in the atmosphere comes to soil. So, when it comes to soil, plants can absorb. As animals eat plants, this nitrogen goes to the body of animals also. Yeah. Meanwhile, you know, these plants and animals release their waste matter and they die later, and then their waste matter and dead bodies subject to decomposition. So, this decomposition of organic matter in waste materials and dead bodies of plants and animals add ammonium ions to soil. This conversion is known as ammonification. We call it ammonification. Yeah, but most of the plants can't absorb ammonium ions, then they should be converted into nitrate ions. Okay, I will come to that later, but meanwhile I want to tell you about this. Now, I told you that these bacteria living in root nodules of legumes. Legumes are a family of plant, now from which we get like pulses, and this is called biological nitrogen fixation. This is known as biological nitrogen fixation. Yeah, so it is done by bacteria like Rhizobium and Azotobacter. They do biological nitrogen fixation, but that will add ammonium ions to soil. But I told you that most of the plants do not like to absorb ammonium ions. So, these ammonium ions should gradually be converted into nitrate ions. That will not happen at once, you can see that on the chart. Ammonium ions are converted into nitrite ions, NO2 minus ions. That is done by a nitrifying bacteria called Nitrosomonas. There is a nitrifying bacteria called Nitrosomonas. It is not on the chart, I think you all can remember that, Nitrosomonas. It can convert ammonium ions into nitrite ions. Nitrite ions should again be converted into nitrate ions. It is done by a bacterium called Nitrobacter. Nitrobacter can convert nitrite ions into nitrate ions. Now, plants can absorb. This conversion is called nitrification. Conversion of ammonium ions into nitrate ions is called nitrification. So, plants can absorb this nitrate ions. So, then again when these plants, animals release their waste matter and when they die, all that subject to decomposition, again ammonium ions are added, that is called ammonification. Yeah. And there is another way in which this fixation happens. we identify biological fixation. We call it biological fixation because it is done by bacteria, which are organisms, so which are living things. Yeah, so rhizobin and acetobacter, they are the ones which do this biological nitrogen fixation. There is another method in which nitrogen in the air comes to soil. What is that? That happens during lightning. Now, hereafter then you are going to recognize lightning as an important process. So, that is why the nature has created this. Now, so at one point we can think that okay, there is a real purpose behind all these natural things. Yeah, we normally have a feeling that lightning is harmful. Yes, it is harmful if you do not take the necessary precautions, but naturally lightning does something really important to organisms. Let us see what it is. You know, during lightning the atmospheric temperature increases. Nitrogen is an inert gas, I mean it does not react under normal conditions at the room temperature or at the normal atmospheric pressure, it does not react. But in an instance like lightning, as the temperature increases, atmospheric nitrogen can react with oxygen and forms oxides of nitrogen, maybe nitrogen dioxide or nitrous oxide or nitric oxide. These can be formed during lightning and they react with rainwater and they will be added to soil. That is called atmospheric fixation. That is what you see on the chart also on the screen. Yeah. So, that can also add nitrate ions to soil. That is atmospheric fixation of nitrogen. Yeah. So, now does it look like a cycle now? If you consider biological fixation and atmospheric fixation. Now, these two show how nitrogen in the air comes to soil. Then to be a cycle, this nitrogen should go back to the air. Now, these nitrate ions should go back to the air as nitrogen gas, then that should also happen. When that happens only we can consider it as a cycle. So, this is called denitrification. So, now you see what happens in denitrification. Nitrate ions are converted into nitrogen gas, you can see that. That is done by denitrifying bacteria like Pseudomonas and Thiobacillus. These bacteria can be found in waterlogged soil, let us say near river banks or in marshy lands. In this type of places, this type of bacteria live and they do denitrification. In other words, they can convert nitrate ions into nitrogen gas, so it goes back to the environment. So, then this is how it happens. Now, I want to tell you one more thing here. Now, you see in both cycles, in the carbon cycle and the nitrogen cycle, even in other cycles, these microorganisms play a wonderful role. Now, you can understand how important they are. Now, we talk about extinction of animals, we talk about extinction of plants, but we very rarely hear that people talking about extinction of microorganisms. Actually, we have destroyed most of the microorganisms by now because of different harmful chemicals that we are using, because we are putting so much of pressure on Earth's atmosphere, on Earth's hydrosphere, on Earth's lithosphere, and we are putting so much of pressure. By different human activities we are doing this. So, we identify two methods in which nitrogen in the air goes to the body of plants and then to the body of animals. One is biological fixation, the other one is atmospheric fixation, which happens during lightning. Yeah. So, is there another way in which this happens? Yeah, there is another way, that is the industrial fixation. That is bit of artificial, because you know humans extract atmospheric nitrogen to produce nitrogenous fertilizers, and then these nitrogenous fertilizers are added to soil, I mean added to plants. In that way also nitrogen goes to the body of plants and animals. Yeah. Now, when talking about these two cycles, carbon cycle and nitrogen cycle, you all saw that microorganisms play an important role in carbon cycle and nitrogen cycle both. So, what will happen if these microorganisms are killed? Actually then cycling will be affected, biogeochemical cycles will be affected. Now, you know, by now we are putting so much of pressure on Earth's ecosystems. We put this pressure on Earth's biosphere, Earth's atmosphere, in all that. So, that can kill these microorganisms which are really essential to maintain the balance of the nature. So, you know, we produce many environmental pollutants through different human activities. Yeah, these pollutants have made most of these microorganisms got extinct. So, in the second part of our today's lesson, we are going to talk about these environmental pollutants and environmental pollution. Yeah, so let us see what it is about. Yeah, so environmental pollutants and their effects. Yeah, let us see what these environmental pollutants are. Already you are aware of most of the environmental pollutants, but here you will learn about some other environmental pollutants as well. So, by being aware, there are many things that you have to do. I mean, we need to start all these individually from ourselves. So, sometimes we must be using some of these things because we are not aware, but after learning this part of the lesson, we become aware of this. Accordingly, we can take actions to minimize the damage that they cause to the environment. Yeah. So, what is this environmental pollution? Now, we talk about environmental pollution. This is like one of the main topics going on in the world nowadays. They talk about environmental pollution. There are many organizations and things like that which talk about this environmental pollution. Yeah, discharge of pollutants which cause deleterious effects on natural environment is called environmental pollution. Yeah, so if a particular substance makes an unfavorable effect on the natural environment, we call it environmental pollution. We can identify different types of environmental pollution. You can see them: land pollution, air pollution and water pollution. So, now we are going to identify the substances which cause these types of pollution: land pollution, air pollution and water pollution. Yeah. So, when it comes to these environmental pollutants or the waste materials in the environment, we can categorize them. I think nowadays also you must be doing this. Now, when this garbage lorry comes, like we have to separate them and give. So, this is a simple thing that we do. So, but even though it is a simple thing, that is an important thing that we need to do. Yeah, there are non biodegradable substances which do not subject to decomposition done by microorganisms, like polythene, plastic, metals, glasses, porcelain, electronic substances. They do not subject to decomposition because microorganisms can't feed on them. They are non biodegradable substances, and there are biodegradable substances like discarded food, plant and animal parts, dry leaves, paper and cardboard. They subject to decomposition. So, we identify them as biodegradable substances. Let us see what the other environmental pollutants are. Yeah. So, different environmental pollutants. So, these are the types of pollutants that we are going to talk about in this lesson: heavy metals, e-waste, particulate matter, domestic waste, nuclear waste, agrochemical waste, industrial waste, greenhouse gases. So, these are the types of environmental pollutants that we are going to study. So, we will be talking about their sources as well. Okay. Over usage of agrochemicals. This is another type of environmental pollutant. We are using so much of agrochemicals nowadays. We use insecticides, pesticides, fungicides, weedicides, and also we use fertilizers which can be harmful to microorganisms involved in cycling of materials and other processes like fixation. Yeah. chemical fertilizers, and also we use insecticides, weedicides and fungicides. These are different types of pesticides we use. Yeah. So, when using these pesticides, there is a thing called lethal dose, that is the dose of a pesticide required to kill 50% of a population of a particular pest species is called lethal dose. So, if it is really high, then it is really harmful to the organisms in the environment. Yeah. Over usage of agrochemicals. Yeah. Now, government has released a gazette, and through the gazette they have banned usage of these agrochemicals as they are really harmful. You can see them on the screen: glyphosate, propanil, carbaryl, chlorpyrifos and carbofuran. So, usage of these agrochemicals has been banned through this gazette. As I told you, they are really harmful. Yeah. So, the next type of environmental pollutants is industrial waste. You know, industries add different types of pollutants. They burn fossil fuels from one hand to get energy for their production processes. Meanwhile, they are using many raw materials to produce different other substances. Then finally, some waste materials can be added to the environment. Let us see what these industrial waste are. The waste materials that discharge after the production process, which cannot be used again, are called industrial waste. Now, the world is so industrialized. So, as a result, proportionately lot of industrial waste are also added to the environment. Yeah. So, one such waste is hydrocarbons. The compounds made of carbon and hydrogen only are hydrocarbons. Yeah. So, let us see the methods which release hydrocarbons to the environment. Yeah. By bacterial action on garbage, swamps, dead plant and animal materials and organic waste materials. When anaerobic microorganisms act on waste materials, hydrocarbons like methane can be produced due to anaerobic action on waste materials, and products obtained from fractional distillation of crude oil like LPG or liquefied petroleum gas, petrol, diesel, kerosene and lubricant oils and grease. They also add different hydrocarbons to the environment. So, these are the sources of hydrocarbons, which is an industrial waste. Yeah, hydrocarbons are one type of pollutants that industrial activities add. Not only hydrocarbons, industrial activities add many other types of pollutants. Let us see what they are. Yeah, greenhouse gases. I think you are aware of greenhouse gases. Actually, these gases act as a glass in a greenhouse. That is why we call them greenhouse gases. Later in another lesson, we talk about greenhouse effect. So, I am not going to discuss about greenhouse effect now. Yeah. So, as these gases absorb heat, they have caused an increase in the surface temperature of the earth. We call that global warming. So, these are the greenhouse gases. Carbon dioxide, that is actually the main greenhouse gas in the earth's atmosphere. Sulfur dioxide, yeah, the next greenhouse gas is methane, CH4, and even chlorofluorocarbon acts as a greenhouse gas. Even water vapor is a greenhouse gas. Now, industrial activities add these greenhouse gases, and which has caused global warming. Let us see the next type of pollutant. Yeah. So, you can see emission of greenhouse gases by different sources, power generation and even volcanic eruptions and industrial activities, and all these things emit greenhouse gases to the environment. Yeah. So, one of the greenhouse gases is sulfur dioxide. It has an irritating smell and it causes respiratory problems. Now, here you identify the ways in which sulfur dioxide is added to the environment. Combustion of coal. What is coal? What does it contain? It contains carbon. So, then how come that gives out sulfur dioxide? You must be having a doubt now. Now, along with coal you get sulfur as an impurity, So, when you burn coal, sulfur dioxide can also be added. So, in coal power stations they try to use low sulfur coal, so that they can reduce the emission. In some other power stations, what they do is they send this sulfur dioxide through a calcium hydroxide solution. So, then they can make it precipitate as calcium sulphate. In that way, these meanwhile they take different actions to minimize the emission of sulfur dioxide. Yeah, and combustion of petroleum, burning vulcanized rubber. When you vulcanize rubber, you heat natural rubber with sulfur. So, when you burn it, sulfur dioxide can be added, and bacterial action on some organic matter can add sulfur dioxide to the environment, and volcanic eruptions can also add sulfur dioxide to the environment. So, these are different sources of sulfur dioxide. Yeah, oxides of nitrogen. Wherever you get high temperature, oxides of nitrogen are possible. Nitrogen does not react otherwise. If the temperature is really high, then nitrogen can combine with oxygen in the air and forms different oxides. Yeah, during lightning, the temperature is really high, so oxides of nitrogen are possible. In the internal combustion engines of vehicles, again because of the high temperature in the engine, this is possible. Not that nitrogen is a component of the fuel used in vehicles. Yeah. So, this atmospheric nitrogen reacts with oxygen because of the high temperature in these instances. Yeah. When you get sulfur dioxide and nitrogen dioxide especially, they cause one main environmental problem, that is acid rains. So, now we are going to talk about acid rains. Yeah. So, what do you think, is rainwater normally acidic? Yeah, rainwater is slightly acidic because it contains carbonic acid. How do you get this carbonic acid in rainwater? It can react with carbon dioxide in the air and forms carbonic acid. So, rainwater is slightly acidic, like weakly acidic. But when you say acid rains, we consider the rain which contains strong acids like sulfuric acid and nitric acid. Now, is very obvious because of the causes. Now, I told you that sulfur dioxide and nitrogen dioxide cause acid rains. Sulfur dioxide reacts with water and then further oxidizes and form sulfuric acid. Even nitrogen dioxide reacts with water and will be further oxidized and form nitric acid. So, acid rains have strong acids like sulfuric acid and nitric acid, and they have a pH value of about 5.6. Now, let us talk about the harmful effects of acid rains. Yeah, these are things actually you all even can think. I mean, you do not have to by heart all these things. You can think if an acid rain falls, what type of damage that it can bring about in different things. Let us say that an acid rain falls on a forest, on a rock or a metal construction, then we can accordingly think the type of harm that an acid rain can cause. Okay, you can see them on the screen also now. Destroy forest and crop cultivation, increase the acidity of water bodies and kill aquatic organisms, affect absorption of minerals by plants, because when it comes to absorption of some minerals by plants, the pH value affects. So, acid rain can change the pH value, I mean it can turn soil more towards acidic. So, absorption is affected, and dissolve rocks like limestone, destroy metallic constructions, buildings, statues and ruins, because acids can react with metals and things like carbonates, that is why it happens, and dissolve toxic heavy metals and increase their concentration in water bodies. These are some of the harmful effects of acid rains. Yeah. So, here we identify different types of environmental pollutants. So, we talk about agrochemicals and we talk about industrial waste. Under industrial waste we talk about hydrocarbons and greenhouse gases and the gases which cause acid rains. Now, we come to the next type of environmental pollutants. Yeah, that is heavy metals. Let us see what these heavy metals are. metals having a relatively high density or high relative atomic mass are called heavy metals. You can see some examples of heavy metals on the screen: mercury, arsenic, chromium, cadmium, lead, copper, manganese, zinc. When these heavy metals enter the body of organisms, they can bring about different types of harm to the organisms. Yeah. So, here we identify methods which add heavy metals to the environment. Yeah, let us pay attention on that. Agrochemicals can add heavy metals like arsenic and mercury. Even mercury can be added by using coal, broken thermometers. Thermometers have mercury in them, and barometers, mercury barometers have mercury in them, paints applied on ships, and industrial waste. So, these are some of the things which add mercury to the environment, which is a heavy metal. And lead is another heavy metal. Combustion of leaded petrol, they add lead to petrol to support complete combustion. So, leaded petrol can also add lead to the environment. Dyes used in cement, paper, paint and rubber can add chromium to the environment, another heavy metal. And you get cadmium here. These are the things which add cadmium to the environment. Industrial waste, waste released from zinc mines. In electroplating, cadmium can be added when producing orange color pigments. So, these are some of the things which add cadmium to the environment. Yeah. Now, we have come to the next type of environmental pollutant, that is particulate matter. When it comes to particulate matter, we pay our attention on really minute particles which cause the harm. So, again under particulate matter, you can see we talk about solid particulate waste like carbon particles, heavy metals, dust, carbon and asbestos, because these can be found in like tiny particles in the environment. That is why we get them under particulate matter. And liquid particulate matter, you can see water droplets, because we have identified water as a water vapor as a greenhouse gas. So, then that can also be harmful, and liquid organic particles and mercury droplets. So, these are examples that we can give for particulate matter. Yeah. Here we come to the next type of environmental pollutants, that is electronic waste, or simply we call them e-waste. These can be added to the environment by different electronic accessories that we use nowadays. These are some of the electronic waste, e-waste. Lead, you can see lead and the sources, and you can see mercury and the sources. Now, earlier also we identified some sources of lead, but now this is related to electronic devices. And cadmium can be added by batteries and mobile phones. Actually, it says every year these mobile phones add considerable amount of cadmium to the environment, which has become really problematic nowadays. And beryllium can be added by computers, telephones, automatic electronic appliances. And light emitting diodes can add heavy metals like arsenic, and computer casings and wires can add polyvinyl chloride or PVC. That is also an e-waste, and the other thing is non biodegradable. The next environmental pollutants is nuclear waste. So, nowadays we use nuclear power to generate electricity. So, nuclear power plants use these elements like uranium, plutonium. They are going to be nuclear waste because they are highly radioactive materials. So, they can be toxic to organisms. So, then there are some of the pollutants that we have identified. Meanwhile, domestic activities. Now, in our houses also we use like many substances. Just think of different things that we eat or that we drink or that we apply within a day. So, we use like so much of things. So, we meanwhile we add many waste to the environment. So, that they only come under domestic waste. Yeah, spoiled food, plastic and polythene, discarded clothes and glass and porcelain, garden waste and human excreta, and all these come under domestic waste. So, then they also cause a considerable environmental pollution. Yeah. Yeah. So, then you get some other things also like food additives, cleaning agents, medicine, cosmetics, paints, all these are related to our lives nowadays. So, then accordingly many waste materials are added. Okay, so, these food additives are substances added to food to enhance the taste, odor, appearance, nutrification and shelf value. For these purposes we can add food additives. Meanwhile, when it comes to these food additives, now they come with an E number nowadays, you might have seen that. That is like a European standard, and there is a meaning for these E numbers. You can see different ranges of E numbers, and their meaning here on the screen. You are not really like supposed to remember them for the exam, but for our life situations, and this knowledge is really important. Yeah, cleaning agents are another thing that we use in our day to day life, and they are also problematic to the environment. Plant oil or animal fat and a base like sodium hydroxide or potassium hydroxide are used as raw materials when making soap. Yeah, soap is a result of a reaction between a lipid and a base. So, that is why it says we get plant oil or animal fat as a lipid, and we get sodium hydroxide or potassium hydroxide as a base. Reaction between these two produces soap. So, then we use soap as a main cleaning agent. Meanwhile, there are several other cleaning agents. We use shampoo and detergents, and we use cleaning agents to clean floors and walls. Yeah. So, these are type of cleaning agents we use, and here you can see some of the harmful effects of cleaning agents. They can be harmful to aquatic organisms. They destroy coral reefs near hotels, because hotels use quite a considerable amount of detergents every day for cleaning purposes. That has become a big threat to coral reefs, and they reduce biodiversity of freshwater bodies. Yeah, so these are some of the effects of cleaning agents. Now, you can see one of the effects of detergents here in the diagram, floating detergents swans. Now, this is one of the bad effects of using too much of detergents. Because of this type of thing, the amount of light entering the water body decreases, that affect the primary production done by aquatic plants. Yeah. We use medicine also in our day to day life. Here actually we pay attention on medicine used at home without medical prescription, like, so we do not all the time, we do not have to go to a doctor, we just sometimes go to the pharmacy and buy some medicine. So, we pay attention on that type of medicine here. So, let us see what they are. We use anodynes for fever, like we use paracetamol, different creams for pains and itching. For different aches and pains we use different creams, and antacids for gastroacidity. When the stomach acidity increases, we are using something like milk of magnesia, which can neutralize the stomach acidity. So, they are antacids. Antiseptics like spirits for cuts and bruises. Disinfectants, we use disinfectants to clean the floor, kitchen, toilets and bathrooms. For these purposes, we are using disinfectants. Yeah. So, here in the table you can see different medicine that we use, like magnesium carbonate, aluminum hydroxide gel, aqueous magnesium hydroxide, like in milk of magnesia. So, these are some of the compounds found in medicine that we use in our life situations. And disinfectants, so these are the compounds in them: phenol, chlorine is an element there, and alcohol. So, these are some of the ingredients, main ingredients in disinfectants that we use. They might come in different commercial names, but these are the main ingredients in them. And antiseptics contain things like iodine, surgical spirit, and boric acid. Again, they might come in different commercial names, but these are the things in them. Yeah, cosmetics are another thing that we use in our day to day life. Yeah, when it comes to cosmetics, again there are different types of substances. We get perfumes which give us a pleasant smell, and bleaching creams. Most of these fairness creams and all, they contain bleaching agents, and also talc, hair dyes and bleaches, deodorants to get rid of the bad body odor. We use deodorants and lipsticks. Now, so these are some of the cosmetics we use, but as they contain like different types of substances, they can also bring about harmful effects. Yeah, you can see some of the things that I have given here on the screen. Excessive usage of cosmetics can cause headaches, vomiting, breathing difficulties, and skin cancers. Sometimes you might have even come across with instances where even some people have died because of wrong usage of cosmetics. So, then we need to be intelligent when using these things. Yeah, actually these are not only for your exam, this is for your life as well. Now, they might show all these things in different advertisements, but we need to be intelligent before selecting these things and using them. Yeah, it says long term usage can damage the liver, kidneys, and the brain. Yeah, so you can see how harmful they can be. Yeah, this is another type of things that we use in our life situations. Paints. When you get a paint, it has three main components. It has a pigment that gives a color to the paint. To make this pigment, metal oxides or salts of metals can be used. Meanwhile, metals like gold, zinc, aluminum can also be used to give the particular color of the metal. And the bind is also called the fixative, that only forms the membrane. Once you apply paint on a particular surface, it forms a membrane that is done by the bind. Is a non-volatile substance, and we use a vehicle or solvent. That is the liquid which dissolves pigment and the bind. Now, as a vehicle or the solvent, a volatile substance like turpentine can be used. So, then but when you go through these things, you can see they also use different chemicals and which can be harmful to us. Yes. Now, we have come to the next type of environmental pollutants, that is combustion of fossil fuels and waste matter. They can add things like dioxins, carbon monoxide, carbon dioxide, and sulfur dioxide. Yeah. The next type of environmental pollutants is persistent organic pollutants. As it says, they are persistent, they last long in the environment, and you can actually they have like properties, they are highly toxic and they last in the environment for a long time, they easily spread in the environment, and also they accumulate in the body of organisms. So, then these are some of the properties of persistent organic pollutants, simply we call them POPs. Yeah. So, so under these POPs, scientists have identified this thing called dirty dozen, which includes a group of 12 harmful chemicals that humans have ever produced. Yeah, that is why we call this dirty dozen. Yeah, so these are some of the problems that persistent organic pollutants can cause: impotency and inborn defects, mental disorders, and reduction in immunity. These are some of the problems caused by persistent organic pollutants. Yeah. So, here you can see different problems caused by persistent organic pollutants or POPs. They cause impotency and they cause inborn defects and even mental disorders, reduction in immunity. So, these are some of the problems caused by persistent organic pollutants. Yeah. So, we have come to the end of today's lesson. So, we talk about the biogeochemical cycles, and then we talk about environmental pollutants. We identified different categories of environmental pollutants and different methods by which these environmental pollutants are added, and also to a certain extent we talk about the problems that they cause, like acid rains. In the next lesson you are going to talk about some other problems caused by these environmental pollutants. So, to understand what you are going to learn in the next lesson, so you need to be really good in the things that we have done up to now. So, let us meet up in another lesson. Have a good day.